Hi, I'm Randy Wooden, and welcome to another in our Edge Library series. This time we're talking to military folks and building a resume, part 2. In part 1, we talked a little bit about making sure you had proper keywords at the top of the resume to match the sort of jobs you're looking for. We talked about titles and ideally using descriptive titles as opposed to the specific title the military assigned to you. And we're also looking for words that tend to match. I mean, using keywords, using job titles that match, and trying to actually talk more on the line of skills and what you can bring to the table versus perhaps the specific job duties, because they may not always align perfectly with what the civilian world's looking for. So one other thing we can do with this, with a resume, and I would tell this to anybody who is making a substantial change, meaning maybe a new industry or perhaps a new function, and that is you've got to consider at least moving away from what I'd call a chronological resume and perhaps moving to a skills or a blended resume of skills and chronological. Here's what I mean. Most resumes, when you think about it, and perhaps yours also, it'll list your most recent position at the top, position before that beneath it, and on down the line as far back as you choose to go. And while that's normal and customary for many people, it doesn't help you if all of what you've done is in an entirely different industry and you're perhaps even looking at a job function change. So what I would do is I would pull 3 or maybe 4 of the skills or the job functional areas that you'd like to pursue. Example: leadership, project management, cost reduction, process improvement, purchasing, administrative. Those are functional areas that you can get involved with. And what I would do then, and I do this with people's resumes frequently, is let's take project management or project leadership. Well, in the military, you do that all the time. Now, you may not call it that, but you are managing people. You'll manage a project, a process. You're accountable for meeting timelines. You've got certain quality levels that have to be met. Perhaps you have a certain number of people you're involved with and a certain budget. You've got material that's involved. Well, all of those things need to be coordinated. So you've got that going. That would be project management. So you could have then a heading on your resume that says project management experience. And then you could list with 3 or 2 or maybe even 4 bullet points, and in a couple of sentences, maybe 3 sentences, briefly describe what that project was. And again, we do in another library segment, we talk about the SARS method, the situation, the activities or the action, and what was the result. So try to think in those terms as you write that out. So that's what you want to do. You want to have your keywords at the top of the resume, followed by 3 or perhaps 4 functional skills and brief examples, maybe 2 to 3 examples of each. And then at the bottom, that's where you want to do your chronological. And you don't have to include every single job you've had. I think certainly you want to put your most recent military position, but you don't have to include everything. So you could in a little bit of detail list your duties and perhaps an accomplishment in your most recent 1 or 2 or maybe 3 positions. But if you've held 8 or 9 different roles, I think at some point you just say prior experience included, and then you just do a list of the descriptive job titles. So that's what I would do on a resume to show skills, followed by a little bit of the chronological. And certainly if you have college or you've had specific training that's relevant to the job you're applying for, then I think you need to mention that toward the bottom of the resume. One other point on resumes we didn't touch on in the first segment, and that is, how does this thing look? How does it look? Because remember, an employer is looking at a resume for a couple of things. One is finding what they want on there, the content. Do you have the right words? Do the words match? Secondly, you don't want to make it hard to find. Think about when you go to a store. You go into a store that's huge, which is all well and good, but if you can't find anything in there, you're going to get frustrated. And at some point, you'll either leave, or you're going to ask for help, or you're going to walk around in circles. Same thing on a resume. Put plenty of white space in there, meaning open areas so the eyes look at it and they can see more readily what's on there. Don't be afraid to use underline, bullet points, italics, bold. Do things so it's not a boring document like many of the ones you probably had to sift through in the military. You want it to be appealing to the eye. So those are some tips on building a resume. Hopefully some of those tips can come into play and help you out. That's going to wrap it up for this in our Edge Library series, talking with military folks and dealing with building a resume, part 2. I'm Randy Wooden. Thanks for watching.